Okay.
Greg, how you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Good.
Great to
Hey,
talk to you today.
I got Greg Walsh from Wolf Brigade Gym, and you're out of Canada, correct?
Rochester, New York.
Why did I think Canada?
I don't know. I'm going to take that as not an insult, but
No, it's so bizarre. So
we're close.
So we can do two things because this is totally unscripted. We could I could violate all of my ethics and re-record the intro, or just fucking leave it and go, way to research your guest, you moron. So Greg, you're from Sweden, right? Like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
New York. I'm going to leave this all here. Greg,
if the worst thing I'm ever called is Canadian.
Yeah, well, but you know that I'm a former Canadian, right?
Oh, reformed Canadian?
Former, not reformed. Former. We've totally lost control on this show. No, guys, we are not doing magic mushrooms or anything. We're just like
that's right.
No, I'm actually originally from Canada. I'm now a U.S. citizen, and so let's start over. Hey, guys, I got Greg Walsh from Rochester, New York here. Greg, just fill people who don't know you and what you do, just a little bit of background, because you got a really interesting philosophy. You know, I follow you online, and your message is so, like, it's like an uppercut, right? Like every time you write, and we'll get into that a little bit more about your writing style, but tell everybody a little bit about you.
Man, I appreciate that. I'm from action sports and hardcore music, transitioned into martial arts and strength and conditioning. And we had an early days CrossFit Long Beach out in California. And I moved back to Rochester, New York in 2008, which is my hometown, and started Wolf Brigade. And Wolf Brigade is I guess what I just saw is my continuation of physically and philosophically where I was with training and where I thought CrossFit was going and things like that.
Nice. That was way too brief, but that's what I asked you for, a short thing for the like there's,
we can expand.
So one of the things that you hit me up and said, hey, you know, I'd love to be on your show. And I didn't even hesitate to go, yeah, let's do it. And I get some people
That's
that hit,
awesome.
and I get, and let me tell the listeners why is, you're doing your own thing. It's very authentic. And what I mean by that is like in my space, self-defense, there's a million people doing self-defense, but if you look carefully at what I'm doing, I'm following a lifelong passion and I'm doing my thing. And it's built around physiology, physics, and psychology. I'm not saying, hey, let's dress up like this and prance around and I don't mean to like make fun of, that was me trying to be facetious about just doing goofy shit, not uniforms. But that's what I see in you is like, you're swinging the mace, you're using kettlebell, you're doing like, you know, heavy lifting, and you're focused on intentional movement, but there's a passion and a philosophy that exudes in every post and every video you do.
Well, I mean, of course, I appreciate that, and what an amazing compliment from someone that I respect so much. And just to touch quickly on what you do, part of the reason that I reached out and people have even, you know, maybe jokingly criticized me for being the squeaky wheel, but I reach out to people who I feel are doing philosophically something like what we're doing, which is following an authentic path. It doesn't have to be the same path as we are, but it has to be an authentic path, or realistically, because really neither of us are monetizing what we're doing. Probably I'm definitely worse at it than you are, but I'm just not interested in contributing to their process. So the reason I reached out is because as a martial artist and strength and conditioning guy, I can see clearly there is no mystification to what you're doing, and that's really attractive to me. What we're doing is following a path that I saw, but didn't see in action. I saw in my head, I knew that it was something relevant. And when I saw the details people were applying to excellent martial arts, and the design that people were applying to the other things I like, music and things like that, no one was combining it into strength and conditioning. And of course, every lift in the world has been performed before, but there is a lot of nuance and detail that had not been addressed. And one thing that I found, and that we found early out in CrossFit Long Beach, was it was possible to get a lot more done with a lot less if you increase the detail and deliberateness and not just wing it for the clock. And that's really what we've expounded on in the last 10 years in Wolf&Brigade is detailing out, knowing that, for most people the training is the vehicle, not the destination. So if your training takes everything out of you, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, you've got nothing left for the destination.
Nice.
So we've been, I guess, maybe obsessively, neurotically detailing things out to the point where we are able to elicit equal to greater results with less risk and less volume.
I love it. And go ahead, sorry.
That's something I'm proud of.
You should be, man. It's funny. I was just delving into Daniel Coyle's book on the talent code. I don't know if you had a chance to read it or look at it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's amazing.
I never had
Myelin. I mean, it's like,
yeah. So
it's way too smart for me, but
yeah, it's funny because obviously the book came out in 2009. It's almost a decade old, and I'd heard about it, and many people told me to look at it, and I just never did. And I've been, because I travel so much, I get a lot of audiobooks. So I was doing like one of my daily walks, and I was listening to it, and I got back. In the first chapter, I went to my whiteboard in my garage gym, and I went crazy. I mean, but what it did was, and I'm speaking to what you're talking about, the deliberateness, the intentionality of movement, and how that can, I can do a 90-minute talk, and then I gotta like I'm spent. I can do a 5-hour, I know the stamina and endurance elements to, if my workout is because I'm a public speaker, I go around lecturing, I know if I got to talk for 2 hours, I want to be done. I want to be emotionally, psychologically, physically spent in 2 hours, because I got to give my audience everything. And so that's my rod or my work. And I know that, I've got a military gig coming up, and I know that I'm doing like 5 days, 8 hours a day. So, I've got to, I've got to mentally, spiritually, physically prep for that. And I've been doing this for 40 years, so I'm not worried about the stamina or the content, but you still got to, and so
that's like training for a high level competition. I mean, I can understand completely. And I mean, what I'm doing is much smaller than what you're doing, but I'm driving out to teach a few clinics, and I just taught one last Sunday at places that I just feel are, just the greatest places, So when I get there, I will die giving that presentation, because I refuse to accept anything less of myself. That's it.
Well, you're an artist, and that's what I dig is, I just got back from Australia, and I was watching our latest iteration, Spear 4.0, for a government client. And I had 2 trainers that I'd flown out, one from the UK, one from the States. I went out there, founder, CEO, doing my little, waving like the Queen, and, doing some stuff because my team runs the course, my team runs the course. And, I came out, but watching the course and watching the content and watching the feedback, on the way back on the flight, I rewrote the entire program, because I'm an artist, because you're an artist. It's like this could be way better. My brain has changed since the last iteration. And I'm like, okay, we need this content. But I really dig what you said about like, you'll die for your audience. And that's what I tell, we got a course going on in New York City now. And Sunday night, I had my 2 coaches, got them on the phone in their hotel room. And I said, guys, when you took your first course, there was some moment in the course during either a drill or a lecture where you went, oh my God, this is different, or this is the shit, or that's the missing link. And you had this feeling like you were now home, that this was philosophically the right place to continue your education. And you could see their faces change on this video call. And I went, the feeling you have right now is the feeling I want you to inspire in every person in the class this week. And it may not be slide 1 or slide 2. It may not be Monday or Wednesday, but that is the type of emotional and spiritual intensity I want you to bring. Because what we do, to be selfish for a second, is like our system is about dealing with sudden violence. So like there's no aesthetic in art. I always tell people, don't confuse technical with tactical. Right. And
yeah, I love that. I love that quote. It makes it for someone like me that's a martial artist and has competed in martial arts, but that has also navigated more than a handful of non-martial arts physical confrontations. That makes perfect sense. They only feel the tiniest microscopic bit the same. You know, it's and that's one of the things that resonates with me about what you do is it's apples and elephants, and it's unless you've been in both, it's really hard to say that with any type of authenticity. It's anyway.
It's funny. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. I was on part of my morning rituals. I scanned different social media for far too long, but that could be 10 minutes. And right. I saw this old clip of Steve Jobs talking about consultants in a very funny way, and I reposted it to Facebook. Check it out when you have a second. But he basically said like if you haven't owned and run your own thing for at least a few years, then you just have like this like minuscule slice of perception. And if you have no skin in the game, if you don't know what it is to be that entrepreneur, that owner, and go, like what you're doing, driving across the States, doing seminars, delivering equipment that you built and designed, but that's fantastic, right? I mean, I was just on a call with Century Products today. I mentioned their names.
Oh
yeah. And one of the biggest.
Awesome.
And we were talking about my high gear and talking about a possible collaboration. I was explaining to them, that we've sold over 20,000 high gear suits since I started it, and
really,
yeah, it's crazy.
That's exceptional.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it just. But here's what it is like here's a guy who grew up in Canada, near Rochester.
That's right. That's right.
Right. Notice I'm slowly going to cover my ass on that.
No one even ever heard it.
Right.
It never happened.
Right. But I used to drive like in the early 90s, I couldn't afford flights. I would drive to events in Florida and all over the States, and I'd bring my prototype and I go to these trade shows, and that was my crucible. Like cutting my teeth was, explaining people, and I'd say, hey, listen, there's a different way to train, that if the outcome is handling sudden and real violence, then careful what you practice. You might get really good at the wrong thing, and you'll only find out after the fight. And
I mean, of course, I agree with that. And the only reason that I ever feel even the slightest bit appropriate sharing self-defense related information to people, which I take extremely seriously. And I take what we do with strength and conditioning very seriously, but in the self-defense application, even more so, because of that specific fact. It's these high probability things that are so unpredictable in the same right. And that's exactly it. You're going to get good at a punch or a kick or something like that. And realistically, I mean, it's just not going to be applicable. It's when I watch your videos and I see how you narrate things, there's a truth to it that is only able to be experienced with experience.
Right.
And that's, you never want anyone to get attacked, but at the same time, unless you have been, you shouldn't be sharing that as fact.
And this is why that Steve Jobs thing came out, because you've got all these people online like serving their philosophies up as consultants for safety who
Yeah.
haven't studied violence or gone through it. And it's weird, like, and I've had people try to, call me out, and if I could monetize my haters, I'd be really wealthy. And,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and it's,
Yeah.
and it's like I've been studying this for 40 years, and my clients actually fight. My clients aren't, and again, I don't mean this, I just say this to be provocative. I don't have like a dojo in a strip mall, and my clients are families. My clients are
Yeah.
military
Yeah.
and law enforcement. I get feedback every
Yep.
fucking week, like, about whether the stuff works or not. And I probably still wouldn't be around teaching with the volume and the op tempo that we teach at if my stuff sucked. But here's the thing: is like, it's not my stuff. I feel like an archaeologist. I feel like what I did is I discovered back in the 80s, like, how physiology was faster than physicality. And I discovered it and kind of reverse engineered the spear system, how to make the startle flinch a practical tactical application, how to weaponize the startle flinch. Like that wasn't like a meeting in New York with a media company going, guys,
That's right.
I need to find a
That's
cool
right.
acronym and hook to build a company. you know,
Well,
it was,
I talk about it as the flower. Once you know what you're looking for, the flowers will often arrange themselves,
that's
and
nice.
that's how I think. That's how I think about strength and conditioning. That's how I think about details. The the evolutionary process is constantly moving, or it's not an evolutionary process. So even when people are exceptional at things, and we both see a ton of them in our fields and even in our collective fields, that are so excellent at what they do, that their evolutionary process has stopped because it hasn't needed to progress. They're making enough money, they're teaching enough people, whatever. But the reality is, and I hate to have go-to quotes, but I say often that I would rather fail than suck. And while I have
I like that
while
one.
I have no intention of failing, what that basically means is if I can't find a way to intelligently and provably evolve, then I will go right back into the hole that I started in, where I'm just going to experiment until I have one.
Right.
And I mean, I saw that same thing in your process since I started watching, many years ago. I think we might have recorded over the part where we talked about our brief meeting. But yeah, even back then, 2000, whatever it was, 7 or
Yeah. Was that no, where was that? Was that
was I
was
think
that
they were
Was that San Diego, across at San Diego?
it, I think they were calling it Phil Fest. The Phil the Phil Fest was in Las Vegas. And there might have been a secondary meeting at CrossFit San Diego, but I believe that the time that I shook your hand and congratulated you was 2007 at Phil Fest, and that was just one at that time that you remember, a very small gathering.
Right, right.
I was there. I was there to say hi, but then also present a project that Glassman and I were working on together called CrossFit Shirts, to the other small groups of trainers and affiliates that were there, and you were there for your stuff, and that was
Nice,
it. But
nice.
anyway,
That's like,
brief history.
yeah. But it's amazing how much everybody from CrossFit to you to us, we've evolved and moved. And listen, the thing about your your quote, I really dig it. I'd rather fail than suck. It's, I think when somebody signs up at your place, they're unbeknownst to them, or, I mean, it depends on their level of self-awareness. They're signing up because of your integrity. They're not signing up because you've got, the same amount of kettlebells as the kettlebell club down the street, right?
That's
Because
right.
the vibe and the energy is really different. You posted recently something that I really brought a big smile to my face. And you could explain a little bit more, but where you said, hey, if you train less, I'm charging you more, right? Is the gist.
That's right. That's
Dig
right.
into that, because
Yeah.
I would let the audience hear what you, because it's cool.
Well, man, I mean, we are good at a very few things and bad at many more things. As far as getting members, we don't seek them out. We kind of make them find us. And most of the time who we get is great. Sometimes though, we'll get people that want what they think it is versus what it actually is. And then when people come in and realize that it's detailed and hard and things like, and not detailed and hard in like a militaristic or shouting type of way, we're extremely caring and detailed, but what we do is challenging. It's not come in and pat you on the back for just managing to walk in the door. We want something out of you once you're in there. And so the post that you're referring to is for people that are going to dip their toes in. We've basically decided that in our process that takes way more work and is way more of a liability than an asset. So they're just gonna pay more or not attend, which is ultimately, kind of the self-correcting goal there is
right.
We don't want people there 5 and 6 days a week. We never expect that. We're realists, and we train almost exclusively really normal people. But if you can't make 2 to 3 hours a week to physically and psychologically improve yourself, then you're either going to pay more or go somewhere else.
I dig it. Like I see like a new person come in there and they're looking at the rate card and it says, like all access 7 days a week is $100 and 2 times a week is $200. And you're like, well, it's like,
yes, that's right. That's right.
Is this a printing mistake? And you're like, no. And I get that. I mean, I get that. Like when you're talking, like you could be describing our approach to self-defense and our training. And when I used to run schools, now, we're just doing seminars, but it was, that whole thing of like, like on our 4-day curriculum, we always do like if an end user course, we always do a review of SPEAR, the essentials, like understanding the physiology and the physics behind it. Yep. And while those are the fundamentals, that's the part where if somebody's not keeping up with their training, you always got to go back to that. So you can't, and then people, the conundrum, for lack of another cooler word, is that people come in, they go, hey, could we do something like a little cooler? Like, can we do like a gun disarm or a flying sidekick? Or they want to do something like Wazooey that they saw in a John Wick movie. And I'm like, dude, like you don't even understand balance yet. Right. And,
that's right. That's
and
we see that. And of course, I mean, as you well know, that's as prevalent, if not more prevalent in fitness. The novelty for the sake of itself is what sells tickets at the door. Details are not sexy, but they're what get you to the dance. And realistically, what we've spent a lot of time doing, and most of what I try and articulate on the internet is that we have to get people to enjoy and even romanticize the details. And then once they do so, the progress comes, and then all of a sudden they see why it's important. They see why it's kind of romantic and fun and all this kind of stuff. But until they've addressed it, then it just seems like too much work for the benefit.
It's interesting, because in the last couple of years, the what's your why has been such a big thing, and to the point that it's maybe been saturated in some areas because people are now using it not knowing their why. They're using it as a hook, and so that's another thing to meditate on. But in 1986, I wrote an article for Insight Karate magazine called "A Word to the Wise," and "wise" was spelt WHYS, and it was explaining like the actual science and psychology of why I trained a certain way. And this brings me back full circle, because I forgot to kind of close the loop on why I brought up talent code. Is my fault. I'm legendary for my tangents, and occasionally I remember to finish the story. But in the beginning, they're talking about their studies on soccer players in Brazil, and they were talking about of course the myelin and neuron connection, and what they figured out was why they're so good is that they weren't playing soccer; they were playing the what do they call it, foosball, which was a smaller ball, a heavier ball. It was played on concrete in a much smaller conditions. And so what these kids were doing is from the ages of like 5 to 15, by the time they started getting recruited for the leagues, is they were used to playing a very similar version, almost like stress inoculating scenario-based training that we do, where they were making the numbers that they reported in the book was 600% more contact with a ball in a confined space with a smaller ball. Now you put this kid on a field with a bigger ball that was lighter, and it was like he was a ballerina, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I immediately, I got goosebumps right now recalling this, because what I did is, like, if we're standing here and we're we're bouncing around, right? And you guys can't see this because it's you're only release audio, but we're looking at each other. But I'm dancing on my toes in my office, getting ready. If Greg and I are boxing, and he moves towards me, I move back, and then I move sideways, and he moves sideways, and I throw a jab and it doesn't hit. He throws a jab and I slip and I parry and I miss with my punch. We just moved for a minute without any contact. We were trying to make contact, but there's so much gap time. There's so much in between stimulus and response, this thinking and moving. So I had intuitively created these drills in the 80s, where, like our emotional climate drill, our Range Rover, where they were done in varying speeds of slow to full speed, depending on the equipment you had. But what would happen is we would stay at extreme close quarters and we would call a range of fighting. So visualize this, like we're standing nose to nose, and I go, Greg, you're going to go first. You're going to be offense. And I call striking, close quarter, grappling, or legs. And you can kick me, headbutt me, uppercut me, gouge my eyes, obviously in a controlled way, but you had to explode in, make contact, and then I had to feign the response. And there were different variations of this. I'm just giving you one drill. But in the space of like a 3-minute boxing round, we practiced target acquisition, balance, timing, control, follow through. So if we were wearing our high gear suits, boom, we'd nail each other. And then we were also adapting to a moving target. In other words, we weren't standing there like focus pads or a heavy bag. Visualize this, right? So, you got a high gear helmet on and you go close quarter, whack, I hit you with a headbutt. You feel the shot, boom, you would move. And then I might call striking, and you would have to do something from an off-balance position. The concept, like my intuition back in the 80s was, in a real fight, I'm off-balance emotionally, psychologically, and physically. What would happen if I actually trained off-balance emotionally and physically and psychologically? That means when the real fight happened, what appears to be off-balance to everyone watching is actually my balance, because that's how I fucking trained. And
so my and rooted in martial arts, I believe, is such a sound way to move into.
Hang on a sec. We just froze. Hey, you still there? Resume, and we're back. We had a little technical glitch there, and Greg is back. Do you remember where you were, brother?
Right. Yeah. All I was saying is I really believe that martial arts is such a strong transition into strength and conditioning, as long as those variable philosophies that you were just speaking about are applied. One of the things that we think about, and not to steal the term of stress inoculation, but is the fact that most of the people that we train, and very thankfully, are never going to be in some of these high-level physical altercations.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we can't elicit similar responses, even if they don't choose to train things like martial arts. So we do so with making sure that we're moving laterally a lot. Something like the maces is very unique to watch people fumble through, even high-level, either athletes or CrossFitters or things like that, because people, as you know better than anyone, people do not move well side to side.
Right.
And then also things like breathing drills, holding your breath for short durations of time, pre or post a conditioning drill, just to kind of start to kind of evoke that panic response in kind of a controlled setting. So
sure.
Anyway, just to kind of echo what you were saying there, and say that we find that, and I believe that to be as important as the strength and conditioning themselves, is that part of the physical philosophy that allows you to adapt to a non-weightlifting stimulus, to a non-airdyne stimulus,
Right.
similar to what martial arts or self-defense training do.
Yeah, no, it's critical, and if it's explained properly by the coach, and that's that whole a word to the wise play on words, is that the goal in our training was always about self-awareness and managing fear. My big epiphany in the last couple of years, and I started that, and I know you're tracking online, that play on words of moving from no fear, no fear, to KNOW fear. That if I know fear, if I can look at it, if I can look in the eyes and go, come here, you little fucker, I know what you're trying to do, and then flip it and have that turn around so that it's a fuel as opposed to part of the fight too. Dan Millman, who wrote Way of the Peaceful Warrior, said, when you face just one opponent and you doubt yourself, you're outnumbered. And I always love that, right? You face just one opponent and you doubt yourself, you are outnumbered. So it's like 2 against 0, right? Isn't that heavy?
Man.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
Yeah, I may have to take a moment. Yeah, that's significant. Yeah.
So
Jeez.
I don't. Yeah. So those of you who haven't read Way of the Peaceful Warrior, pick it up. It's an old classic. And Dan was a skilled gymnast, and yeah, so it's one of those things. I share that in every single course. If you doubt yourself, if you face just one opponent and you doubt yourself, you are outnumbered. And so this whole idea of, and this is that ties into this no fear element, where people will call me up, they'll like book an hour consulting with me, and they'll go like, what can we work on? And they want to learn like some like secret wazoo move. Let's show me a move that'll get me out of there. And I'm going, the move is managing fear, because I believe, and like part of our whole be your own bodyguard and this being able to hack self-defense is based on decades of research, interviewing victims and victors of violence, and looking at what was the common thread between that special operations guy, that cop, the firefighter, the soccer mom, the teenager. And it was never, well, they had obviously a good sidekick. No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that they could bob and weave. It wasn't that they had a good ground game. It was always their ability to manage fear. There's always a part in the story where, and then I thought I was going to die, and I got so angry, and it's so, in like after decades of researching victims and victors, I realized like the connection was the mental edge, the adaptive courage. And I started to put together, like in 1988, we released Cerebral Self-Defense, the mental edge. And it was like a kind of a repository of things that I had learned. But then what I did is I tried to figure out, as you do so interestingly when you post, is what's a cool way to write this so that it is memorable. And if it's memorable, it's easy to memorize, right? And right. So there's an art and science,
and it resonates when people are thinking on their feet, or when people are kind of referring back to a concept, how it's phrased. I mean, the phrases are really as important as the content a lot of times. And a lot 100%. Of people have really terrible content, but they phrase them right. But
right. Yeah. No, and I agree. And that's why, the thing is, like, if you're putting people through a workout, you come in and maybe you've got a thought or a philosophical talk, a thought or a quote, or people come in and they've read your meme for the day and thought about that. And then you come in and really, like, superficially, if you don't know shit, you're going, well, all they're doing is swinging a kettlebell, right? But depending on the adaptation that you're inspiring, where at some point they want to quit or they don't want to believe in themselves, but they still, make it through that workout. Well, what that did, if you didn't crush their soul, and like you said earlier, you still left something where they left there recognizing that this was an evolution in their self-actualization, they're a better father or mother. They're a better kid. They're a better business. And that's the whole point.
Well, and I mean, of course, physicality and the combinations of physicality happened long before any of us. But that's one thing that I give that I give CrossFit a lot of credit for is that combination that kind of led to that weird, empowerment by attrition that definitely needed some overhaul and revision, but that concept was excellent to me. And so the way that I think about it now is life insulation. So some of these people are going to be competing in fitness. Some of them are going to compete in fighting. Some of them are martial artists and cops and firefighters and whatever else. But really what we want to do is insulate them through kind of details and hard-mindedness and deliberate work and composure. We want to insulate them for whatever they're going to participate in. And really, if what we've found over truly a significant amount of experimentation and experience at this point is if the foundation is laid the same with each, it applies equally to all. So one thing that we've really tooled pretty precisely is when we bring people in, we bring them through a curriculum priorities list, and that lets us start, again, just to steal your term, stress inoculation. We're going to find out what they're good at, what they're not. It's going to let us help them move. It's going to let them get familiar with moving in that environment. So then when the water gets hotter, they're already prepared for it. Because initially, if you scare the pants off of someone in their first day, and as you well know, that was an old-timey CrossFit strategy is when people would walk in the door, you would smash them to bits, and then that was the sales tactic. It's holy shit, I did not know this was physically possible. I have to come back and see if it's physically possible again. I get that. We choose to take it a slightly different direction in giving them confidence in what they know, giving them direction in what they don't, and then making sure that they know that we can help them move forward. And really, it's proven pretty significant in exactly what you said, which is they end up, whether they're an accountant sitting at a desk, they're a better accountant, they're a better parent, certainly better in physical pursuits. I mean, some of the cops that we have were and are excellent cops, but to find details, they're hunting for the holes in the boat, have made them just such exceptional officers and such exceptional protectors. So anyway, that's our goal for people is a life insulation.
Yeah, I dig it. I was just on you're. I think people got the gist of that, but the audio just really crapped out for about 10 seconds there.
Oh, sorry.
But that's not your fault. It's just wherever you're at. You're driving across the states right now, and
that's right. That's
literally
right.
like pulled over to do this call. So that's kind of cool. This life installation thing is it's like if you start to look at yourself as an athlete of your life, it's like, what are the sleep, nutrition, breathing protocols, fitness protocols I need to win my race, which is like your life. It's a philosophically a different way we might approach things. I don't know if you saw that post I did where my media team said, "Hey, check out these old videos of you from 30 years ago." And I literally, I wrote about it a day later, but my initial reaction was like a physiological change of nausea. I was like, oh my God, like didn't remember being that lean. I didn't remember being that fast. I didn't remember moving like that. And it was weird because it was over 30 years ago. I
mean, that's crazy to think about. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it was weird. And, I had to come down from that, Greg, and then realize that, and probably I wrote a little piece on it, but basically the message was, I would probably be moving differently if my warm up back in the 80s was, hey, you want to spar? And then we beat the fucking shit out of each other. And the warm up, was putting on your gloves and a mouth guard. We didn't do jumping jacks. So, what like the athletes of today are exposed to in terms of prehab and rehab and bands and rollers and balls and all the knowledge of it's insane. I know that my spine and my neck and my back and my shoulders and knees and my hips would feel really differently if I was starting my career like this year. It is what it is, and I couldn't and wouldn't change
all the
anything.
time.
Yeah. Two things just with that with that thought, because it's relevant to what you're doing and to our listeners, is you need to. We talked about this earlier, of like I'd rather fail than suck type line, is you learn and you adapt. Like I'm doing all different like exercises for my back and neck now, and they're stabilizing pain, and I'm regaining some mobility, and trying to research neuroplasticity and shit like that, and work that into it, going, well, I could bitch and moan that, wow, why didn't somebody tell me about this 30 years ago? Well, it didn't exist, it wasn't on the radar. But the other thing that I wanted everyone to realize is that everyone listening to this show is an aging athlete. I don't give a fuck if you're 17 or 57. That's you're aging right now. You're 60 minutes older, and what are you going to do with the new knowledge and the new inspiration?
That's a really smart point too, and they have the benefit of a lot of people banging themselves up in the wrong ways for a long time, and those that are choosing to use it, we see that. It's a great point. We see that really profoundly. We've got a couple younger people that are training with us that are just these uninjured, pretty physical animals. I don't really like the term natural athlete quite so much, but they're just physical animals. They move well. They've got great bodies. And when we start applying kind of our methods and strategy to them, along with modern like mobility and recovery and stuff like that, you've got these just like nearly supernatural maniacs,
It's crazy. And
it's fun to watch, but
yeah, it's like, damn, that, and you can see it happening like in MMA and stuff like that, where, like somebody who started 15 years ago and has like 900 injuries, and they're still really, really good. But then there's like somebody who just started 3 years ago, but now they're learning the pristine choice moves with the right philosophies and the right nutrition and the right balance. And at the end of the day, you also still need to find, what works for you. I had an interesting talk with some friends about boxing, and I think it was, we were talking about Duran and how hard he used to go. And some of you think I'm talking about the band Duran Duran. I'm not. I'm talking about Roberto Duran. Shit about boxing. They also used to go pretty hard. And some of the people listening to this are going, boxing. What is that? Google it. It's an old sport that people used to just hit each other with their hands.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was actually a talk I did with Alice. Actually featured her early on in No Fear, and she's a female boxer and works with veterans. Really cool person. But she asked me a question that I said, "Hey, I need to talk about this on our show." She was asking about how hard she should spar. And my answer was like, it depends on your goals. And I couldn't remember the boxer's name, but I believe it was Monzon, who went 10 years without losing a fight. And he never went hard when he was sparring, never went hard on his sparring partners. And his philosophy was, I'm going to save it for the night of the fight. And he built his drills around a more cerebral approach, where Duran was legendary, same era, also went 10 years, not losing, but used to beat the living shit out. If we get a time machine and we switch their protocols, maybe neither of them become champions. So my message here is, at the end of the day, you need to explore stuff, but it has to resonate with your personality and your lifestyle. If, again, you've got some goal. We can't just switch things, because that's the art and science of coaching.
Well, and watching that evolutionary process, it has been interesting for me too, because with martial arts and having trained grappling, kickboxing, competing in those things, but also since I was a kid, my foundation was BMX bike riding, action sports. I did that at least relatively well for a while, worked in that industry for a really long time. And as profound as MMA is on a skill and physicality level compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago, BMX bike riding to me, it's like watching an actual literal video game now. And it's, I think about what we would do as something that was just like this really hard thing, or something that we would do to film for a video or shoot a photo of, or something like that. And that's what people are doing, on their way to their truck to put the bike in the car to go to the spot. It's like, that's not even a warm up trick now. It's like a precursor to a precursor. It's like putting your shoes on. So that was, followed suit with what you said, which is the people that have evolved that far, that their goals are to push evolution. I know that's a redundancy term, but they see where things have gone, and based on skill set, needs, desire, they're able to push it even that little bit further. And watching that same thing with fighting. I mean, I think often, and I don't know that you do this, but I'm sure you do this too, is you think about, okay, I know my skill sets, I know my strengths and weaknesses. This is a person I would like to train with and see how this fared. I remember 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I would think about that a lot and think, oh man, I would like to train with that guy and see how it shook out. I know that they would win. I just want to see how it would happen. Now, I mean, there's some fighters that I see now that I'm just like, fuck, I don't want to be within 30 feet of that person. Right. and that's new. That's different.
Yeah, they're
and same thing with BMX. I've always thought, wow, okay, I mean, prior to having several serious injuries that I've had, I've thought, okay, well, if I rode for a while now with my level of physicality being so much better and different than it was then, I'm sure I could ride at a relatively decent level. Now I look at what people are doing and it's like, you've got to be absolutely kidding me,
Right.
Death defying. Before, you'd fall down, you'd scrape yourself up, you'd break your arm. Now you would die.
Right.
So
it's insane what some people are doing. Those videos that go viral of like, those aren't humans, amazing videos or whatever they call them, where you just like watching going like not only how does that person do that, but what was the thought process before that made them think they could do that? Like that you could move your body.
Yeah, that's right.
You look at some like some of the parkour stuff, like the really, like all parkour blows my mind. But then like there's the ones that are out there where I'm going like, why would you even think of jumping over that and through that and spinning like that and doing that? And then the other thing that I never realized this, because I was into rock climbing for a while, and I would buy all these videos. And what a lot of videos show you are the successes. They don't show you the failures. And so there's this interesting illusion with that, because it was, until you have that insight, and it should be obvious to everybody, this is the highlight reel. So we're not showing you the guy trying to climb this rock face for like 6 months and he finally makes it. We're not going to show you him falling for 6 months. We're going to show you the climb where he makes it. Right. And the same thing happened to me in 1986. I went out to meet Joe Jennings at Panther Productions when I first launched my panic attack videos for Panther. And I'm sitting waiting for him, and he's got, I'm not going to mention the names because these guys are around still teaching, but they're like well-known reality-based martial arts guys. And he's editing a couple of them in his editing bay. And I'm sitting there watching, waiting for him to kind of acknowledge me. And it's our first meeting, so he doesn't even really know who I am. He knows he has a meeting. And he's like, hey, I'll be with you in a minute. He's editing, and he's telling to his editing guy, play that kick again. And the guy does a kick. He goes, let me see number 9. And I'm like going, like, they just had 11 takes of this side kick counter, and they're picking the best kick, and that's going to be on the video. And I had this like epiphany. I was like this naive 26-year-old from Canada. And it was like that guy needed to do that 11 times to get the right kick. And I would have bought his videotape thinking this is how good he is. Now, on one hand, demonstratively, that's how good he is, but he needed 11 kicks. Like it was a skill he possessed. But like, if this is a street video, like when's the last time you got a mulligan in a fucking real violent encounter? You stabbed me again. I missed on my X block, I was blown away, but it speaks to what I know you're about philosophically, and that is if you don't know why you're moving, you can't replicate it and you can't concentrate on it. When you understand the relationship between my emotional, psychological, like the intensity there. But then I'll specifically, like, I make people do drills where I'm talking to them about kinesthetic perception and proprioception. And I go, when you understand that, or you lost your balance there, don't put your foot down next time. What? Don't fucking put your foot down. Figure out how to retain and regain your balance, and then let's talk about what you're doing, because it's almost like when we in our military law enforcement gunfighting class, I tell people, how many of you have done an armorer's course and how many of you just shoot? And so I go, do an armorer's course because it'll immediately improve your shooting. And people are like, what? How's that? And I go, even though you're not shooting, the fact that you've now demystified the weapon and you understand it from the inside, when you put it in your hand, it truly is an extension of your body. And what we do in self-defense is we demystify the human weapon. And you guys are doing that. What I see from you with your writing and the spiritual essence of what you're doing is like, this is why we're working like this. This is why you're here.
Well, I think about them as insulationary details, and it's even to touch back on parkour for a minute. The reason, and even BMX and things like that, the reason that they have confidence in the fact that that will work, or at least probably work, is that they've done the rudimentary version and the foundational versions of that thing enough times that it's a bigger application, but it's not a different application. And I think about the same thing now with now that I'm not riding BMX as much and I'm doing more strength and conditioning type stuff, and also been significantly injured many times, whereas a lot of the details that I'm adjusting and developing are things that are keeping me safe in primary movement patterns that would otherwise not allow me to move in those patterns. I've had a spinal fusion surgery, with a serious surgery like that. They basically tell you your chance of return to athletics is nearly nothing. I tore my labrum last year. I wasn't going to get surgery and didn't want to sit on the sidelines. So I just adjust little things with these insulationary details so that when I go teach a clinic or when I'm injured and I need to perform them, I have to get my head right, of course, but my body is going to do whatever the fuck I tell it to do. Nice. And it may not do that for 10 hours, but if I'm going to demonstrate something that someone, has very graciously decided they want to hear from me, they will not be disappointed, and I will not perform that movement with any type of flaw or inconsistency. And it's basically just insulating what would be considered a performance-based version of that with the rudimentary version. And it's like the kick you mentioned, the guy, sure, I understand sifting through footage for sure, but if you've got something in your pocket, you should be able to pull it out any fucking time you want.
Right. Yeah. And again, in all fairness, well, I will talk about that sometimes if it's relevant when we're talking about personal safety and self-defense. If that individual was teaching like, how to design, competition winning kata and it was more about the cultural or the stylistic element. I get that. But if your video on knife defense needed you to, do like 7 takes to do it the way you wanted to, then you're creating an illusion to the audience that's looking up to you. When Panther brought us out, it was 5 videos and they block out a day per video. Well, a full day to film each video, which is kind of industry standard, but the videos are an hour long each. And so okay. I got out there, so they, do that, retakes and, audio problem and equipment and change the batteries. And so they plan a day. Yep. We were finished shooting the entire series Wednesday morning, where I told Jennings, on Monday, he started calling me to the crew, one take Tony, not because I was so fucking good, but because I wouldn't let them do a second take. There was shit where I got punched in the face when I was supposed to slip. There was one shot where it first happened was we were shooting something in San Clemente in the park, and it was a footwork drill, and I rolled my ankle in a little divot in the grass. And I lost my balance. I regained my balance, got back in the drill. When we finished doing it, he said, okay, let's reshoot that one you fell. And I said, no. I said, Joe, I fell, but I regained my balance. Like, can you fall in real life? And he's like, yeah, but it looks like shit. I mean, this is video, Tony. It's not film.
Yeah.
We can record over it. I said, no, but
Yep.
you're missing my point. In real life, I was filming a video, and in real life, I fell, and in real life and in real time, I regained my balance, and that should be the message. I want people to know that.
Well, your craft was constructed and refined. You know, I mean, the difference there is something that I see extremely prevalently in strength and conditioning, and definitely in martial arts and self-defense. Is people are so much more interested in the demonstration than the construction. You know, the flashy demonstration versus the detailed, neurotic construction. And realistically, I would be much more financially stable and well known if that was what we did, because if we showed everything we did, we would be the primary strength and conditioning brand in the world. No one's doing what we're doing.
Nice.
But I want to craft it and construct it in a way that when we do show it, it's providing something, not just the demonstration. You know, there has to be a concept behind it that people can latch onto for what we consider a useful reason. And that's a patient process. But even way back then, man, that paid dividends. You know, that made an impression on someone that you didn't have to ham fist through 5 days of stuff that's supposed to be executed in reality under high pressure. That's important.
Right.
You know,
and
I mean, it's all these things are lost in the shuffle, but
and it's particularly tricky, like, especially, your goal and position and mine is, where we live in the, you got 1 minute on Instagram, right? Like,
yeah.
And it's that whole thing where like I'll get resumes from all over the world of someone, hey, I want to join your team. I'm a black belt in this. I was a cop. I'm retired and this and that. And my answer is always, this sounds great. You got to get to a course. And they're like, no, but you don't understand. Like, I'm already pretty good. That's what they're saying. And I'm like, like you don't understand. Our methodology is really about embracing the methodology. It's not about the execution of the move,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not, you're not selling an online course. That's one thing that's also lost in the shuffle is people, of course it's trite to say, but people want the quick fix. And that's one of the things I think about with Instagram is, it's 1 minute, but anytime I put something on Instagram, my concept is this is one non-disposable minute.
Right.
I am not going to waste this person's 1 minute. And I think that's what keeps us from, oversaturating social media, and then also making sure that what we're doing is at least something better or slightly different than what we've already done. Not just saying something for the sake of saying it. I heard I've been driving, I'm waking up at hotels watching the news. Unfortunately, there was I'm actually going to talk about this at these clinics this week. There was a news story. The girl was talking about tornadoes, and she was using all this really severe language about tornadoes, and she was just really kind of pontificating about how violent and dangerous and severe and terrible. And then she would kind of close the show and say, well, very thankfully, here and wherever we were, we don't have to worry about tornadoes, And so I was just like, you were simply saying something to not be saying nothing. What you just said right there was absolute useless garbage, and it was just simply to keep the mic warm, and I just can't do it.
No, I dig it. It's a motto that I've shared with our trainers and our students for a couple of decades now is be ready and willing to give up who you are today for who you could become tomorrow. And to, can you reinvent yourself? Can you, and I tell this even when I was training fighters, I go, dude, we have a really cool slide in our presentation when I'm doing like tactical shows and I'm talking to people about real violence. I go, are you training for your next fight or are you training for your last fight? Because most people train for their last fight. If somebody kicks your ass, if somebody kicks your ass, while you're hitting the bag or deadlifting or running, you're thinking about that last fight. I got my ass kicked. That guy kicked my ass. It could be sport. It could be street. If you won your last fight and everyone's going, good fight, maybe you're also going, yeah, that body shot. And now you're developing an unconscious bias in relationship to what got you through your last fight. And what you need to be doing.
Unconscious bias. Okay. Yeah, man. Excellent. Yep.
Dig it, right? And
yeah. I'm writing it down.
yeah. Unconscious bias is my big thing. And I love it because it's when I tell people, hey, everyone suffers from unconscious bias, and the danger and problem with unconscious bias, it's unconscious. So, when you're arguing about something and I go, well, that's the unconscious bias. You're going, no, it's not. I go, well, you're just so you know, you're wrong. Because it's unconscious, you have absolutely nothing to fucking say, and people hate me.
Yeah. And you're proving, and they just proved your point. Yeah.
Right. And I've got people who are, some of them are clever enough to say, but then you have an unconscious bias, don't you, Tony? And I go, actually, I have a conscious bias, and that's where you want to evolve to, is the conscious bias. I would say that you have a conscious bias after all the injuries, after all the sports, after all the fear and stress and anxiety you go through, rebuilding your body after serious injuries, going through different patterns and paths as fitness in the industry changes, that you get to a point where you can honestly say, I would rather fucking die than suck. Then you have a conscious bias. And that leads to a different level of self-awareness, so that I remember telling a group of people in one of my early seminars back in the day, I had like 20 guys in, and a lot of it is very Socratic, and it gets very heated in the beginning. Now less so, because of just that psychology of, oh, Tony's a subject matter expert, so people don't ask the deeper questions, which I miss. I'm like, I don't want you to just don't come here because you want to collect a diploma. Come here because right?
Yeah.
And
you don't want them to believe what you say. You want them to test what you say. Yeah. That difference is so crucial in who I watch as instructors that I respect, and who actually has products or students that I respect. There has to be that fact finding. Yep. Anyway, sorry.
And no, it's cool. And the testing for people listening that I'm talking about is the testing of principles. And it's like day one in our course is called Physiology First. And the challenge in everybody, because they come in there going, hey, I was told by my police department to come get certified. I go, that's great, but that's the wrong answer. I want you here to go, I don't want to not go home tonight because I lost a fight, because I didn't understand violence. I didn't understand physiology, physics, psychology. I didn't understand the relationships between violence, fear, and aggression, and how that hijacks my cognitive brain, which impacts my complex motor skills, which suddenly leads me with a toolbox that I've never even experimented with. And now I've got to improvise in a death match. Probably not a good time to improvise. And so I tell people, what I want you to do here is, every drill we're going to do is now as well as based on physiology. And I want you to, anytime that you can disprove this from a scientific perspective, if I say finger splayed outside 90 creates this muscle recruitment, and if you lower your center of gravity, which is a primal instinctive move, and drive in this fashion, you recruit more strength pound for pound. It's the strongest thing you can do. I want you to refute that. That's what I mean by test it. And if you can't, then the rest of the week, I want you to embrace physiology as the foundation of why you're going to move this way. And like that's my conscious bias, right? And what you have is people who are plagued with unconscious bias are like, yes, I've got a question. Yes, what is it? Is it okay if I do this? Can I do this? And why do you keep trying to insert something that you've developed a relationship with through some prior training? Is it repeatable? Is it quantifiable? Is it going to save you? Everything works in a demo. And, we tell people like, hey, everything works once, it doesn't work twice. Like once you know what it is, suddenly you can zig and zag around it. But
and just to keep the thread to strength and conditioning, that's how we feel. One thing I'll say often, and I'm at least partially tongue in cheek, but that once is luck, and
right.
when we test heavy lifts, we test 2 rep maxes, because realistically, once is the glory lift, twice shows that you relatively know what you're doing.
Right.
And it's the same concept of demystification, and they're asking questions about what they can adjust in your demystified system, because they're used to seeing and hearing nothing but mystification. Most people aren't even, not trying to say that either of us is exposed to any sort of like higher consciousness, but most people are never in a demystified environment ever.
Right.
Everyone is either patting them on the back or not patting them on the back for the sake of their own ego, or teaching them something that they were taught but that they haven't vetted or practiced themselves. And so it's in a lot of ways it keeps me probably more self-conscious and humble than even needed, because I'm always hyper aware of never being that person or never being that instructor. I never want to tell anyone anything that I've simply heard because I didn't have anything else to say. I don't want to ever tell the fucking tornado story.
Right. That was great. And it was it actually, and I don't know how you feel about this. The New York Times just released something. It just made me think about this. And I saw it on Twitter, and I posted about it, where there was a story about how some company had done a deal with Facebook that they sent out an app and people downloaded and volunteered their information. And then allegedly that information was used by the Trump campaign to send ads to. And based on the information these people supplied. So there's this whole article about, breach of ethics and the surveillance of all of this stuff. And I posted, I went, you know what? I'll be looking for something online, and then I go to Facebook and there's an ad for it right there. And I'll show my phone to my wife and I'll go, that's fucking a little bit creepy, but it doesn't bother me at all. It's just fucking marketing. If I go to a bookstore and I'm looking for a good book, if I walked into the bookstore and as soon as I walked in, there was a shelf that someone had curated right for me of the shit, I would thank them and think they were geniuses. I don't have to walk around going, hey, do you have this book? They were all there. That'd be great. But because the narrative is surveillance and all, I don't get, and I posted, I said, listen, not to get political or whatever, but no amount of Hillary Clinton ads on my feed made me vote to her. It's this whole idea. And to me, I don't know if you see the connection, or anyone listening sees the connection to the tornado story. It's like the fact that some company is gathering our search habits and then putting some app notices it's raining in my area and there's an ad for an umbrella on my feed. I don't give a shit. Right?
Yeah. Well, and susceptibility to that type of simple but ultra common marketing now is it's predicated on a lack of self-awareness and self-assessment. I see all the same stuff you do, which is, oh, wow, that's weird. Google knows right now what I searched on Amazon and knows that I want to buy 36 tuna packets to put in my car because I'm going to drive across the country. Is that a little weird? Absolutely. Is that influencing me in any way? Only if I'm sitting there waiting to be blindly influenced.
Right.
There's more problems present there than the marketing, and that's the only thing that creeps me out about it is that people are, not to jump down a totally different rabbit hole, but that people are so, blind and submissive to what they want and what they need that it's influenced by a pop up on their screen of their computer.
Right. Thank God we don't have tornadoes here. But
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Greg, I got to head to another appointment, so I'm going to cut this off. But listen, I really, really enjoyed this call, and I'll have you back on the show more, and we'll just ramble and talk shit about things, and hopefully we'll try and do it where you have a more stable internet connection. It was pretty good. Why don't you just let's wrap up, and how do people find you? What are the best places to find you and learn more about your system?
Thank you so much. So wolfbrigade.com is our website. There's 9 straight years of detailed linked daily training. The final day of the daily linked training was the 17th. It was the same day 9 years ago that we started posting. But anywhere in there, you can search and start a demystified, free, vetted program. We also have hundreds of articles on mentality and mindset and training and stuff. And then, as you mentioned, our strongest daily offering is Instagram, Wolf Brigade Gym, Instagram. We don't waste your time because we don't want to waste ours. It's short videos and little narratives and things like that. And again, thank you so much for the support, and hope you guys enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely entertaining, provocative, inspirational, dude. It was so good to reconnect. I'm so glad you moved from Toronto to Rochester, and that was awesome because that saved the show. Hey, right. Have a safe trip, and we will reconnect and have you back on the show.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Thank you so much, and congratulations on everything. Awesome.
You too, buddy. Thanks.